Welcome to KRQE's New Mexico News Insiders, 2025 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award winner for Best Podcast. Here's Gabrielle Burkhart and Chris McKee.
Our own KRQE investigative reporter Larry Barker says what we're talking about today could be the cruelest con game of them all. And I gotta say, Gabby, after watching this story that Larry put together, seeing what happened to this New Mexico woman at the center of it, it really is very cruel what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's just gut-wrenching to see this happen in our community. And we know it's, probably a widespread problem, more so than we hear about. But let's just get to it. We are welcoming back the Larry Barker to our show today. Larry, thanks so much for being here.
You bet. My pleasure.
Yeah, so you've been doing investigative work as a journalist now for quite a long time. Oftentimes you uncover government spending debacles, how show viewers how public officials mismanage our tax dollars. But this story that you reported on recently, it has to do with a criminal enterprise that targets one of our most vulnerable populations. And the people operating this scam are scattered across the globe, it seems like, right?
Yeah, exactly. The bad guys out there, we can't estimate how many there are because there are just literally thousands of bad actors out there who are out to take your money, and they don't use a gun, they don't use a knife, they just use a computer or a cell phone. That's all it takes.
Wow. It's incredible.
And just the sophistication of technology obviously has made this even easier than ever before. I want to talk to you a little bit about the woman in your story. You call her Stella, and we should mention the story will be linked in our show notes here today. It is certainly worth a watch, either before or after this conversation. But the woman at the center of this is named, we call her Stella. How did you hear about her story? And was she willing to even talk in the beginning? Or did it take some time to maybe get to that point where she felt comfortable sharing her story?
This came to us through a family friend of Stella's. It's a family friend who lives out of state, who was aware of what we do, but had mentioned that a friend of the family had been scammed out of her life savings, and it was just a terrible, terrible crime that occurred to her, and it might be something that we would want to take a look at. And I said, would she talk to me? And so she gave me her number, and we spoke on the phone. And she's just a delightful lady. She's a senior citizen. She's in her 70s, lives here in New Mexico, and just a really wonderful, open person, quite intelligent. And as she told me the story about what happened to her, I said, would you be willing to sit down with me and just tell your story for our viewers? And she said she would. The only stipulation was that she asked that we not identify her, so we call her Stella, just to protect her privacy. And she's a very brave person because, honestly, most victims of wire fraud, this is a wire fraud case, actually they do not report what has happened to them to the authorities. Right. Many of them don't even report it to their family because they're embarrassed.
Right.
And Stella was embarrassed, and she felt awful about what happened, because she got conned, she got scammed. But she was a brave person, and she said, yes, I would be willing to tell her story. And wow, what a story.
Yeah, and you're right, like people not wanting to share with their family, it makes sense because, you hear kind of on the surface warnings about, scammers, but you never want to be the target of one or be taken as somebody who was convinced, of something that wasn't real. But so let's get into her case a little bit. She gets an early morning phone call from a man who called himself Michael Allen. Tell us about that initial phone call, and why do you think he was able to convince her that this was a real situation that she needed to handle right away?
He calls her out of the blue. It's not somebody that she knew, but her phone rings, her cell phone, and he identifies himself as, he uses the name Michael Allen. He says he's with the FDIC, that's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is the sort of the insurance umbrella over banking transactions.
Yeah, we see their logo everywhere when it comes to any kind of banking institution we go to. So a very familiar government organization, at least by name, logo, acronym there.
And so he said that he was with the FDIC and that they had come across a scam at her bank and that her money was in jeopardy because the bank was going to steal her money. And they wanted to help her. They said that they had been reached out to other customers at the bank to help them, and they are investigating the bank, but they wanted to help her. So what they needed her to do was to withdraw the money from her bank account and turn it over to the FDIC for safekeeping so that the bank didn't steal her money. And, of course, she was shocked. She was shocked. But the person on the line was very, very convincing. And the more he talked, the more she was convinced that there was something going on with her bank. And she said, I've been with this bank for 20 years. And they said, well, it's, like I say, the bank is, we're investigating them, but we want to make sure that you don't lose your money. So they, this person on the phone said, you need to go to your bank. We'll help you here, but you need to withdraw all the money from your savings account. And she did it.
Yeah.
Because she trusted this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she was scared, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Well, he said, the bank knows where you live. You may be in some danger. So you need to get your money out of that bank as quick as you can. Don't tell anybody. Don't say anything at the bank because your life could be in danger. Now, that frightened her. Mm-hmm. Stella is a senior citizen. She's a widow. She lives alone. And she has family members, but they don't live near her. They don't live with her, and they don't live near her. But she was warned, you got to keep this, you got to work. You got to take your money out right now. Right now, because your money's in danger, and your life could be in danger too. So that frightened her. So when somebody says your money's in jeopardy, and even it could impact your life, living alone, don't tell anybody. And he was just so convincing.
Yeah. I want to look a little bit over the arc of your career, because I know you've reported on a lot of different scams, types of scams, this one being wire fraud specifically. I think about the time, though, as well, that you went over after telemarketers. Obviously a different type of scam there. But point being, to those different types, you've seen the evolution of technology over your career. How have these scammers evolved, you think, to operate either by phone from someplace far away to having somebody locally, in this case, we know, come and take that bag of cash from the door, which we'll get to in just here a little bit?
Yeah, years ago, earlier in this business, I've been in the business for more years than I like to count, but the technology has evolved so much that scam artists now can do their con games, their crimes over computers, over cell phones. So years ago, the scam artists would simply they would write letters to people, and you'd get them in the mail. I remember there was mailbox would be flooded with these letters from foreign countries, primarily Nigeria, because there was just a cottage industry of scam artists in Nigeria. And they would write these letters and say, you have just won $3 million in the Nigerian lottery, and all you have to do is pay for the shipping or the insurance on your winnings or something like that. And it used to be letters. Well, that's evolved now because of the technology. Now, scam artists are very sophisticated with computers and with cell phones. They can be operating anywhere in the world. You may think that they're just down the street, and they could be Eastern Europe, Africa, New York, L.A. They could be anywhere.
Yeah. Did Stella mention that this person had any sort of accent, or, sometimes our phones warn us like potential spam call, and none of those?
No, he wasn't.
Yeah.
This individual was not accented, and he had an accomplice. Now, we believe, based on the phone number that he was calling from, that he was based someplace here in the United States, possibly California. But he had an accomplice, and the accomplice was here in Albuquerque because she withdrew the money first from her savings account and then secondly from her checking account. But they sent a, quote, courier to her door to pick up the money. And this individual was tall, was dressed in T-shirt and tennis shoes. He had what looked like a badge pinned to his T-shirt, but he said he was the courier from the FDIC. He knocked on her door. He took her money, which was in several envelopes, and disappeared with the money. So there were at least 2 people involved, one of them here in Albuquerque.
We'll be right back with more of the New Mexico News Insiders.
KRQE News 13 investigations. One of the biggest cons in New Mexico history. How did they get away with it?
Well, they had an accomplice, the state of New Mexico.
A road rage encounter leads to murder.
I miss him every single day.
Did the judicial system fail here?
New Mexico's families, homes, and lives are left in ashes.
There's a level of anxiety.
FEMA has been an abject and abysmal failure.
Watch anytime on krqe.com or our YouTube channel.
So the person on the phone with Stella convinces her that he is an FDIC fraud specialist. So again, this is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It's an independent agency created by Congress to maintain stability and public confidence in the nation's financial system. So again, a very familiar agency. This guy is posing as an official who's supposedly investigating her bank, tells her money's in jeopardy of disappearing, putting that pressure on her to act now before your money is gone. So the pressure tactic seems definitely part of the convincing, right? She's older. She seems like a pretty trusting person, but tell me about that interaction with the door. Like, how did she get to the point of, okay, not only did she withdraw that first amount of money, which I think was $22,000 from the savings account.
Yeah.
She now has the money with her in her house, and she's told somebody's going to come pick it up. And I recall from your story, she didn't want to let that part happen.
Yeah, she'd withdrawn all the money from her savings account, and the whole time, the imposter, the gentleman who said he was with the FDIC, remained on the phone. He said, put your cell phone in your purse because he wanted to listen into all of our conversation. He still wanted to control what she was doing. And so she goes to the bank. She withdraws all the money in cash from her savings account. She goes home. He says, lock the door. Don't answer the door for anybody. We're going to send a courier now who will pick up the money and take it to the FDIC offices for safekeeping because your money's in jeopardy, but we're here to protect your money. So don't open your door to anybody except our courier. And that afternoon, sure enough, the courier shows up. He says, I'm the courier, and she hands the money to the courier. Now, she was handing the money to a stranger. She argued with the guy. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'll keep it here in the house. I'll keep the money safe. It's out of the bank now. But I have the money. And he said, no, this is what we do. We're here to protect your money. You need to trust us. We're going to safeguard your money. They argued back and forth. But finally, he wore her down. Mm. He kept saying, no, you need to do this. You need to do this. And she trusted him.
Yeah. And this is all one fluid phone call, right? They haven't hung up.
That's right. He stayed on the phone throughout this whole transaction. The initial phone call, her driving to the bank, coming home. He's still on the phone because he wants that control. He doesn't want to lose the connection.
And have
Stella.
Her second thought. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we know she went to the bank not only once, but it sounds like twice, the second time to go remove all of the funds from her checking account, sounds like. And the withdrawal of so much money as well, it raises the red flag with bank tellers because they're used to this at times now that people will come in, make a large withdrawal and say, I have to do this because, but this is a different kind of situation. She's been coached, it seems, to say the right things so that even though the teller's raising the flag, it wasn't enough to really stop this from happening. So can you tell us about the interactions, though, that Stella had with the bank?
Bank tellers are trained that when customers come in and make sizable cash withdrawals, they are trained to look for telltale signs of scams and try to help the customer. Now, it's the customer's money, but banks see this all the time, and so they try to ask questions of the customer to make sure, to try to help them that they're not being scammed. Now, the bad guys in this case coached her. They knew that the teller was going to try and talk her out of making the withdrawals. So she was told what to say so that the bank teller, all they could do is say, well, just be careful, be careful. And so she was told to tell the bank teller, if they questioned her withdrawal, that it's for personal reasons or a family emergency. And, the bank cannot stop the withdrawal. All they can do is warn the customer about scams. So the teller did their job. The bank did their job. They tried to talk her out of this, but she'd been coached, and she successfully withdrew basically her life savings. There's a little bit left in the checking account, but I think the total was somewhere close, a little bit under $60,000 in cash that she lost. But it was really almost all the money she had.
Yeah, and perhaps one of the other factors here was that the person coaching her was saying, your bank is the problem. Your money in this bank is under threat. So I imagine that's got to be part of the feeling she has is, well, I've just got to go out there, get my money out from the bank, which is apparently the problem. we know that was part of the story, though, to convince her to remove the money. So a different component of the scam.
It was very
there.
convincing, and it was kind of a clever scam, because ordinarily you might tell the bank, hey, somebody said that there's a problem with my money or whatever, but she said, don't say anything to the bank, because they're the bad guys.
Right.
Yeah.
They're the bad guys.
I've had family friends, contact me saying they got a weird call. Somebody, you need to pay for something over the phone. Usually it could have to do with somebody getting their phone number or records somehow. And, I always have to warn them, yes, this sounds fishy. Do not open any messages with links or emails with links and click them, knowing that's how scammers often access your personal information. But these elder fraud scams are so prevalent, it seems. Stella's case is now being investigated by the U.S. Secret Service. In talking with them, you had the Secret Service in your story. Do you get a sense that these crimes are actually solvable, that they can charge somebody in a crime like this?
They are solvable, but extremely difficult to investigate. Now, one of the con artists was here in Albuquerque. The other one was probably not, but it was on the phone. So the only thing they had to go on was a phone number. That is it. It was a phone number. And phone numbers can be spoofed. You could be anywhere in the world. You could have a 505 area code and actually be sitting in Lagos, Nigeria. That's the way the technology is. So these kinds of scams are extremely difficult for the authorities to investigate. Now, if you were to go to the Albuquerque Police Department and report that you'd been scammed, it's unfortunately local police departments usually do not have the expertise or the technological know-how to investigate these kinds of, so we call them wire fraud or cyber crimes. They just don't have the technology or the means. But even more importantly, there are too many crooks and not enough cops. And there are so many scam artists out there. There's so many scams. They can't all be investigated. And the sad part of this is because there are so many criminals out there doing this that most are just simply not caught because we don't have enough cops to do it.
Did the Secret Service share with you at all, though, that they have caught people in wire fraud situations and prosecuted?
Absolutely. People are caught all the time. They're indicted. They go to prison. So it's not impossible. It's just very difficult to investigate. But the Secret Service reports they have been very successful in many cases of investigating, indicting, and convicting fraud suspects.
We know Stella shared her story as a way of trying to warn others, don't fall victim to what happened to me. She said this ruined her life in her words to you. What other efforts are being made to try to prevent crimes like this?
Really honestly, you can't prevent it. As long as somebody has a cell phone and people answer their phones or responds to emails or text messages, it is, I'm sorry, it's just a fact of life. You can't prevent it. You can't prevent a criminal, a con artist, a scam artist, a fraudster from contacting their victims. And once they contact them, that's where they use their expertise, gain somebody's trust, and try to steal their money. Last year, this is an amazing statistic, but last year, scams reported to the Federal Trade Commission by adults age 60 and over reach $2.4 billion. That's in 1 year. Now, most fraud goes unreported. So it is likely, experts believe, that 2.4 billion is more like 80 to 90 billion dollars in a year in fraud, and primarily aimed at adults 60 and over.
Right.
That's awful. Yeah, it's an awful statistic. Do you know anyone who's been personally scammed or targeted in a financial scheme? Just curious.
I have a first cousin who was targeted for they call it imposter fraud, where somebody calls you up on the phone, is impersonating somebody else, and tries to steal your money over the phone. And I have a first cousin who she's older, and they tried to steal some money from her, and she came close to actually giving them money, but she figured it out and was able to put an end to the scheme pretty quickly. But I would venture that there's probably our viewers, I bet there's probably everybody knows somebody who's either been scammed or has been targeted for a scam.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys, have you ever been, had somebody ever called you up and tried to scam you over the phone or on a computer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I remember my grandpa telling me he got a call. Somebody was trying to impersonate me, saying that I was in jail. I've heard that scam before. And yeah, it's amongst probably everybody in my family. They've gotten those calls that make you second guess, think twice. And sometimes you can easily fall into the trap of okay, well, so-and-so needs help. I've got the money, let's make this happen. It can happen very quickly, obviously.
When you think that every one of us probably knows somebody who's either been scammed or has been targeted for a scam, the implications of that, it really blows my mind that there's so much of this financial exploitation out there, and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
I get that question all the time, is how do you prevent it?
Yeah.
Well, you don't prevent it. The only thing you can do is try to protect yourself.
Yeah.
But you can't stop them from calling you and trying to steal your money.
We'll be right back with more on New Mexico News Insiders.
Hey guys, Chad Brummett here with New Mexico Frontiers, the KRQE original series that focuses on tech and innovation happening right here in New Mexico. We've got a lot of great stories about various businesses, technology, and of course space exploration. So make sure that you follow us on air at KRQE and Fox New Mexico, as well as our KRQE YouTube channel online. In the meantime, let's get back to the New Mexico News Insiders.
I think just public knowledge, talking about cases like this, hopefully gives people information to at least be wary. This producer shall not be named, but this is a running, almost we made light of the situation because it didn't quite get to the scam level, but we had hired a new producer here at KRQE some years ago who was about to start, so didn't know anyone in the newsroom quite yet. But he was told by somebody who was impersonating a news manager here that they needed to bring gift cards. And this person said it out loud, okay, I'm going to get your gift cards, so-and-so. And the manager was like, I didn't tell you to get gift cards. Do not go buy gift cards.
Yeah.
So do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah. I recall that the person was actually late to their shift. And somebody called and said, "Hey, where are you?" And I said, "Oh, I was getting the gift cards that
you told me to get."
Asked me to get, and that's when they figured it out. Like they were in line to essentially hand over money for gift cards, and then obviously I think with those types of scams, they say, give me all the gift card info.
Yeah. And I think this was, maybe a new, younger employee that was like, well, I guess this is part of the job.
Right, exactly. It goes to show you that even those who are young and tech savvy, depending on the pressures you may have at that time, which showing up to a new job, wanting to make sure that you're doing what you're being told to do, could easily be the convincing factor that gets you to do something that seems outrageous on second glance.
Yeah.
That's a point that the Secret Service made, is that these scams are not the victims are not limited to the elderly, senior citizens. He said their experience is that victims can be anybody. They said there are doctors, there are lawyers who have been scammed. Even if you're pretty savvy with tech, you can be scammed. Don't think because you're a young person that you're immune from being victimized. The statistics are pretty alarming. Anybody can be victimized. This is not a senior scam.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can be scammed.
I feel like I know the answer, but is there any recourse for someone like Stella to see any of those dollars back?
Sadly, no. They have her money, and the only thing that can convince them to return it will be if they are caught and prosecuted. Otherwise, I asked Dr. Brody, who's a retired UNM fraud specialist, I said, is there, in Stella's case, is there any silver lining? And the answer was, there's no silver lining. All we can do is publicize what happened here, and hopefully others will hear this story, be more careful with their money, be more careful and questioning when they get phone calls from strangers. There are a couple of things that Stella did not do that she probably should have done. And one thing was, she was warned not to say anything. But anytime you get a phone call from a stranger and there's some sort of urgency involved, that's a red flag. But the one thing you can do, particularly if you're living alone, you're on your own, older person, is talk to somebody, a family member. Even if they don't live with you, just run it by a family member. If you don't want to talk to your children because you're afraid that they'll think that you can't manage your own money and you're independent, is talk to a friend. Talk to somebody else. Run the scenario by them. See what they think. And Stella was told not to do that, but that's one thing she should have done. If you run it by somebody else, just let them hear your story. Let them help you make some decisions here.
Yeah. You mentioned in the report that Stella lost a lot of money. It was about $55,000, just under $60,000 that you were saying. How is she doing now? Does she have friends and family helping her? Is she doing okay?
She has a daughter, and when all this happened, she did not tell her daughter because she was embarrassed. But her family knows now. They know what happened to her, and they're very supportive. This interview with Stella was pretty emotional, and it was really gut-wrenching to hear her, because when she thought about what had happened to her and the fact that how he robbed her not only of her money but her independence and her sense of trust, it just, she said, it ruined her life. Truly, it ruined her life. So she looks back on it, and it was painful. It was embarrassing. What can she do? The only thing she can do is tell her story and try to help others hear what happened to her so it doesn't happen to them.
Yeah. So even if the person who did this to her gets away with it, Stella had a message for the people who did this to her.
That God's going to punish you. They will be punished. Maybe not here. But what they did is evil.
So you mentioned it was emotional hearing her talk about that. How were you feeling at the end of all of this, hearing her story, knowing somebody came to her door, took all of her cash, probably is out there aiming to do this again?
It's just so sad. Listen, I've been doing this a long time. I've talked to many, many victims, and anytime you hear a story like this where a senior citizen, a widow, somebody who is friendly, open, trusting, just a good-hearted person, and they get cheated and they lose all their money. I mean, it could be your mom. It could be your grandmother. It's just so sad. I've heard lots of stories in my career. This is really sad. I thought this is one that we need to get out. Our viewers need to hear this story. And I think parts of the interview are hard to watch. But our viewers, you need to listen to this story. You need to listen to Stella. And you need to see her emotion. And it really is a wake-up call, I think. This is an important story. We're just very pleased that we could get it out. And Stella was brave enough to tell it. I have talked to many victims who have been in similar situations and say, would you sit down and do an interview with me about it? Oh, I can't do that. I can't do it. Mm-hmm. Stella did it.
Yeah.
She was brave enough to tell her story. And she was, there were tears.
Yeah.
There were tears. I watched that myself, and it's just hard not to be emotional when you see what happened.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Well, we hope that Stella's story, like you said, is maybe a wake-up call or even just a conversation starter among families, in their inner circles, sharing these details and hopefully warning others about this potential scam. Anything else we're missing, Larry, that you want to add that we didn't ask you about?
No, I think we got it. It's just if you haven't seen the whole story, is go to KRQE and take a look at the story. It's just really a few minutes, but it's well worth your time because there are some lessons in there, and it's something to talk about for families. Should talk about, particularly with older folks. If they live alone and they have a cell phone or a computer, this is the kind of thing that people need to talk about with their parents, with their grandparents. It is a wake-up call for New Mexicans. This is really an important story. So if you haven't seen it, please take a look at it.
Absolutely. Sure. Well, we'll make sure to put a link as well in our show notes. And again, Larry Barker, thank you for joining us.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, thanks again to investigative reporter Larry Barker for sharing that story. Definitely a warning to others about these elder fraud scams, very prevalent. You can hear more from Larry and about all of his previous investigations. He has a new CTV show on our Kirky Now app that's on your smart TV. It's called Barker Files.
Yes. Yeah. Looking forward to hearing a lot more discussions about the stories he has done over his career. As he mentioned, more years than he can count, or longer than he likes to count.
Longer than he likes to count, yeah.
But certainly an accomplished resume for Larry, and it's nice to be able to look back at many of the pieces he's done over these years. So.
Yeah. And if you all have any stories or people you'd like to hear from on our show, always feel free and reach out. I'm Gabrielle.Burkhart@krqe.com via email and gburknm on social media.
I'm at Chris McKee TV, also chris.mckee@krqe.com. Thanks for watching and listening.